The airplane hummed like a sleeping beast. Passengers' faces were half lit by screens and overhead lamps, a mosaic of exhaustion and thin patience. Near the window, a woman in a crisp white blazer sat with her jaw clenched, her lacquered nails tapping a rhythm that sounded like a metronome of annoyance. In the seat in front of her, a man with calm eyes leaned back, headphones around his neck, a paperback novel resting on his knee. He had the kind of presence that did not demand attention but seemed to cool the air around him. She tapped the back of his seat once, then twice, louder each time. The man looked forward, not toward her, as if the motion was ambient noise. Her face tightened. Her next tap had intention, a pop that made nearby heads turn. He blinked slowly, a small, courteous smile forming, an offering of none, a tolerance of the moment. "Excuse me," she said, voice edged like a paper knife. "Could you stop reclining? It's my leg." There was a warmth in his answer that suggested patience came easily to him. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize. I'll move up a bit." He adjusted not by much, only slightly, but enough that she lolled back, the victory of a woman who had forced small obedience. For a moment, the soundscape returned to the low murmur of engines and soft conversations. Then the tap returned, this time sharper, the rhythm of a drumbeat that meant there was more to come than a request. "Lady, do you have a problem?" A young man 2 rows down muttered under his breath. People began to notice now. The cabin's atmosphere shifted, an invisible current of curiosity. Everyone senses a scene settling into place, the kind they would rather stay out of but cannot. The woman turned, nostrils flaring. "I paid for this flight and I expect to be comfortable," she said. Her eyes flicked over the man as if cataloging faults. His haircut, the casualness of his jeans, the color of his skin. The message in her tone spoke louder than words. He did not belong. A hush collected. The man smiled again, but this time less like a person who forgave and more like someone who chose not to be dragged into the unpleasantness. "I can recline less," he offered calmly. "If it helps." "No," she said, voice rising. "If you can't afford first class, you shouldn't take up space in economy. Keep your elbows in. Keep your knees in. I won't be pushed around." A woman across the aisle glared, and a toddler somewhere behind them screamed, a sound that tightened the throat. An elderly man folded his hands, discomfited. A flight attendant, new to the scene, hovered a few rows back, paper wings of policy fluttering in her mind. She approached with practiced neutrality. "Is there a problem?" the flight attendant asked politely. "This man keeps reclining and kicking my seat," the woman declared, a performance piece with a spotlight on her indignation. "He has no respect. He needs to be taught how to behave." The flight attendant turned to the man, eyes seeking the truth. "Sir, could you please adjust your seat? A passenger is uncomfortable." He looked at her with a softness that was not weakness. "I'll adjust," he said, making the same small movement he had before. The woman snapped. "That's not enough. You think you're better than me? You think your space matters more?" He took a breath that seemed to move the air in a different way, as if the engines hummed his calm. "I don't think that at all. I'm sorry again." Her foot flicked against the back of his seat like a reprimand. The tapping came faster, a staccato of irritation. "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to people who know how to teach you manners." Her words were not just to him anymore, they were to the whole cabin, a proclamation. The man stood. Not in a dramatic way but in a manner that drew attention. He pulled out a slim folder from his bag, laying it on his tray table. "I'm going to step into the aisle for a moment," he said. "I'm meeting someone at the gate, I need to check the time." "I have no interest in seeing your boarding pass," she spat. "You're probably making that up." He did not glare back, he did not mirror. He walked down the aisle like someone who has practiced being measured in public. The woman leaned back smugly, convinced the encounter had ended in her favor. For a few minutes, the flight returned to its static refuge. But the tapping resumed, more aggressive now, accompanied by short comments thrown over shoulders, little daggers. She called across the aisle, "Some people should know their place." Her voice, intended to wound, trembled with a brittle pride. The man had returned to his seat, eyes fixed on his phone, and had not confronted her. A murmur rose, then petered out. People pulled their scarves closer, shifted in their seats. Some watched with thinly veiled curiosity, others watched with a protective glint. The cabin had divided into spectators and witnesses. As the plane reached cruising altitude, the woman increased her campaign. She hit his seat more times, kicked it sharply, and once, without warning, she reached back and pushed his shoulder. The man turned, surprised but composed. "What was that for?" he asked softly. She leaned forward like a shark smelling blood. Don't act like you're the victim. You're disrespectful. He took a long breath and, with the same steady calm, removed his headphones. Around him, the mood hung on a knife edge. A few passengers began to film on their phones. Others lifted their heads as if to see how much trouble their peaceful air would be interrupted. An older woman near the back cleared her throat. "This isn't right," she said, voice steady. "He didn't do anything." The white woman snapped, "Mind your own business. He probably likes being the center of attention. I won't tolerate his attitude." The man reached into his bag and retrieved a small card, an old-fashioned card with embossed lettering. He didn't wave it around as a threat. He simply held it for a second, letting the light catch the edges. The woman leaned forward, curiosity and disdain wrestling for dominance. "Sir," the flight attendant said, voice calm but firm. "I'm going to ask you to stop interacting with other passengers in a disruptive way. It's our policy." The man nodded, then, in a voice so even it could have been a lullaby, said, "I'm not looking for a fight. I ask only that she stop kicking my seat. I have a family member waiting who needs my help." That line, family need, snagged at the attention of people nearby. Sympathy shifted, and the woman's anger grew twisted with impatience. "You're lying," she declared. "Everyone lies. You people lie to get what you want." The cabin tensed. The phrase was loaded, a phrase designed to carry centuries of venom. Gasps moved like a ripple. The man folded his hands, the kind of gesture that seemed to hold time steady. He didn't argue history with her. He didn't detail her wrongs. Instead, he said, "I'm boarding this flight because I have to close a foundation's charity program. Lives are waiting on the decision." "Charity?" she scoffed. "What are you, a saint?" "No." He gave a small, sincere smile. "I'm a doctor. I run a nonprofit. We fund clinics in small towns. I've been traveling all day." She snorted. "Oh, so you're one of those famous types? You expect a medal now?" He placed the card on his tray, not to flaunt it but to let the words exist. The card read his name and beneath it, Chief Medical Officer, Rowan Health Foundation. It was not flashy. It was service written plainly. The woman leaned back, incredulous, folding her arms like armor. "So what? That doesn't mean you can take up space. People work hard. Money doesn't mean manners." No one argued with that. Manners are a currency that belongs to everyone. But the air had changed. Something longer than the flight had come into view, the small daily labor of being a decent person. As the interaction sputtered, a soft voice from the row behind said, "You keep hitting him, that's assault. He has a right to sit." Her response was a string of bile. "You're all wrong. He thinks he's too good. I know people like him." The truth was curling behind her words like smoke. Her ignorance was not merely social discomfort. It was a species of entitlement that had been taught and reinforced. It wasn't the man's fault. It was a mirror of assumptions. The man breathed in, the inhale of someone anchored in a deep place. He didn't escalate. He didn't demand apologies. He closed his eyes for a beat and then opened them, their color steady. "If you are uncomfortable, ma'am, perhaps you can take a moment to breathe. We can both be comfortable." It was a simple offer, paper-thin compassion in a moment that could have become combustible. The woman glared, the resentment inside her a coiled spring. "You want me to breathe? You think you can talk to me like that?" Her voice rose, and now the cabin collectively leaned in. Someone whispered to a friend, "This is getting out of hand." A younger passenger near the front stood up, a little voice of authority cracked but present. "Hey ma'am, stop. Let him be. You're making everyone uncomfortable." She shot him a glance like a dagger. "You mind your own business," she told him. "This man is the problem." The plane's intercom clicked, a tiny bureaucracy interrupting human drama. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're cruising at 35,000 feet. The captain's voice was a neutral hum that did not mend frayed human edges. The woman, feeling emboldened by silence and perhaps the idea that her certainty was more solid than truth, reached back and shoved the man's shoulder, this time with intent. The man turned, hauling himself to his feet like a calm shore. "You pushed me," he said plainly. "You deserved it," she said, breathless with self-righteousness. "You should act right." He walked toward the front galley when a sharp hand rested on his elbow. It was the flight attendant, steady and official. "Sir, we need to ask you to come with me," she said. "Management would like to speak with you." The man glanced back at the woman, his expression soft. "Is this because she assaulted me? She says you were being disruptive." The attendant's voice had the practiced neutrality of someone who knew how messy human conflict could become. He smiled a small, wry smile. I haven't been disruptive, he said to the attendant. But if the airline wants to take a look, I'm happy to cooperate. He walked with the attendant to the front and people craned their necks. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't plead. He simply walked, dignity intact. In the galley, he met the purser, a woman with an official badge and a face that softened with concern when she heard the story. I'm sorry this happened, the purser said. We'll review the situation. Please wait here while I check the cameras. He sat, hands folded, the same patient quiet that had been his armor. The woman, meanwhile, sat like a storm cooling into cloud. She crossed her arms, satisfied, certain that her victory would be confirmed by unseen cameras. Minutes passed like a slow tide. Then the purser returned, a little smile hovering. We reviewed the footage, she said. It shows the passenger behind repeatedly tapping and kicking your seat. We will need to ask her to apologize. The cabin shifted, a collective inhale. The woman looked taken aback. Apologize? She repeated as if she'd been asked to wear a child's toy. Why should I apologize? He was rude. A man near the exit, someone who had been watching the entire scene, stood and spoke, because the footage shows you're the one who assaulted him. You assaulted a passenger. A hush fell. The woman flushed, words scrambling. That's not what happened. He provoked me with his attitude. The purser was firm. Our policy is clear. Assaulting another passenger is not tolerated. The woman's face darkened like thunderclouds. You people are biased, she cried. You always take the other's side. Sir, the purser said gently, we will offer the option to move seats or to make a formal report. But we need to ensure everyone's safety. As the flight attendant returned the woman to her seat and spoke quietly, the man remained in the galley. He had the calm of someone who had been through storms and knew how to tend ships. People around him whispered now, but their words were different. Less curiosity, more apology. The man stepped back to his row after a brief conversation with the purser. He walked calmly, and the woman stared like a person who had been flipped and then found she had to build her footing anew. When he sat, he did not demand an apology. He did not say, "See? I was right." Instead, he looked at her with a tired kindness. You assaulted me, he said quietly. I could file a complaint. Do it, she snapped. Go ahead. He took a breath. I'll tell the truth, he said. I think it's important. Her voice dropped, the bravado fraying. You'll tell the truth? You'll make me look bad. If you say you were threatened, we'll take that seriously, he answered. I only want quiet so we can both rest. For a long minute, people watched the woman unravel. Her fingers twisted in her lap. The narrative she'd used to armor herself, a narrative of entitlement and assumed superiority, was beginning to crumble. A small, involuntary sob escaped her. She hadn't expected that. The man watched her. The world on this plane had been small, finite, a 5-hour stretch of cabin and oxygen. Yet in that space, a larger lesson was happening. The damaging reach of assumptions and the small remedial power of decency. I'm sorry for hitting you, she said, voice raw at last. I shouldn't have done that. His shoulders loosened as if a weight had lifted, not because of the apology but because of the release it brought. Thank you, he said stiffly, and there was a way he spoke that accepted the apology but did not erase the hurt. She looked at him, eyes rimmed with something that might have been shame. I don't know why I did it, she said. I guess I was angry. I thought you were taking advantage of me. The truth unspooled between them like a thread. Anger has a way of finding a target, he said. And sometimes the target is a person who looks different. It's easier than looking at the thing that's making you feel small. She nodded, a small motion. I've been under a lot of stress, she admitted. Money, family. I took it out on you. He breathed in, the quiet, measured breath of someone who had practiced mercy. We all have things, he said. But the way we treat people matters. It echoes. Her hands trembled. Will you accept my apology? She whispered. He studied her with a look that read like weather changing, sun after rain. I accept it, he said. But I hope you take time to think about why you reacted that way. He accepted it quietly, and the plane settled into calm amen.